Psalm 85, it's a prayer that the Lord will restore favor to the land. And I think we're in a time like that, maybe for the last many years. But we need God's favor upon our lives, our families, our country, and on this entire world. Here's Psalm 85. Lord, you have been favorable to your land. You have brought back the captivity of Jacob. You have forgiven the iniquity or sin of your people. You have covered all their sin. You have taken away all your wrath. You have turned from the fierceness of your anger. Restore us, O God of our salvation, and cause your anger toward us to cease. Will you be angry with us forever? Will you prolong your anger to all generations? And I like verse 6. Will you not yet revive us again? Revive us again, that your people may rejoice in you. Show us your mercy, Lord. Grant us your salvation. I will hear what God, the Lord, will speak. For he will speak peace to his people and to his saints. But let them not turn back to folly or foolishness. Surely his salvation is near to those who fear him, that glory may dwell in our land. Mercy and truth have met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed. Truth shall spring out of the earth, and righteousness shall look down from heaven. Yes, the Lord will give what is good, and our land will yield its increase. Righteousness will go before him, and shall make his footsteps our pathway. I want to share a story about a spiritual awakening that took place in the country of Wales. In a little context about Wales and my interest in that area, many years ago I had the opportunity to hear Dr. Stephen Olford preach, and he'd been one of my spiritual heroes. I mentioned that a lot about spiritual heroes, and got to hear him speak at a conference. And I made my way toward the front during an intermission time to see if I'd get an opportunity to meet him in person. And we had the same first name, spelled the same way, and I had a name tag on. And I just couldn't wait for Dr. Olford to notice that my name was the same as his name. When I got up to him, had an opportunity to reach out and shake his hand. And instead of shaking my hand, Stephen Olford put both of his hands on my shoulders and said, "Jones." And I was kind of shocked. What about the Stephen part? That's the same as your name. And he said, "Jones, you're from Wales, just like me." I had no idea that the Jones family could be traced back to Wales. So that was special. He made it even more special. But let me tell you about something that happened back in 1904. J. Edwin Orr wrote about this. Richard Owen Roberts wrote about it as well. And so I just want to share the story as some of these men have put it together. It was the fall of 1904. A revival broke out in Wales. And during the next 6 months, 100,000 people were saved. They came to Christ as Lord and Savior in a great spiritual awakening. No one organized a campaign. They did not use advertising, no public relations, no radio broadcast, no great soul winning and witnessing campaigns. God did a sovereign work that captured the attention of the world. When the Spirit of God fell on a people who were right with him, things began to happen. Without anybody witnessing to them, people would cry out, "What must I do to be saved?" It seems like nowadays we have to convince people that they need to be saved, that they need Christ. But people were just calling out, "What must I do to be saved?" Wales is a principality of Great Britain. It's west of London. And the area has a wonderful history of revivals among God's people. By the beginning of the 1900s, people had a longing for a fresh wind of God's Spirit. The last great revival had taken place in 1859 and 60, so a little over 40 years previous. Church membership had declined. People were indifferent to religious matters. The churches were very formal. God's people needed revival. In 1904, God was at work in many places and in many people throughout Wales. The nation was it was described as a tinder box that God had prepared for the quick spread of revival fires. And God chose to use a young man named Evan Roberts. Actually, he was a boy at that time. And God wanted to use him in a special way. Evan worked in the coal mines of Wales, but he had a great burden for revival. For 13 years, he prayed for an outpouring of God's Spirit. Prayer meetings with different groups of people had become a major emphasis in his life. And early in 1904, Evan accepted God's call to preach, and he went to school to prepare. Following a Sunday school service, Seth Joshua led in prayer, and one of his prayers was, "Lord, bend us. Lord, bend us." The Spirit of God used that simple statement to touch Evan's heart, and on his way out the door, he kept praying, "O Lord, bend me." God gave Evan a burden to go to his home church in Lawford to conduct a week of services with the young people. And following a Monday night prayer meeting on October 31st, Halloween, on October 31st, 1904, 17 young people stayed to hear Evan's message. And his message had 4 points. Number 1, you must put away any unconfessed sin. Number 2, you must put away any doubtful habit. Number 3, you must obey the Spirit promptly. And number 4, you must confess Christ publicly. That night, all 17 responded to his appeal. Crowds increased nightly. The Spirit was poured out on the nation as God's people returned to Him. Lost people were dramatically converted. 70,000 people in the first 2 months. 85,000 within 5 months. And at the end of 6 months, over 100,000 people were following Christ after that October prayer meeting. Those commitments were life-changing. Taverns closed due to the lack of business. The crime rate dropped radically, leaving the police with little to do. People paid old debts and made restitution for thefts and other wrongs that had been committed. There was even this is the funniest one, there was even a work slowdown in the gold mines as the mules had to learn a new language from the converted miners. Well, news of the revival spread to other countries and people were stirred to prayer. Soon God was at work in nations around the world bringing people to Himself. Now I want to go through those 4 points one more time of Evan Roberts' message, and would you just ask God if He wants you to respond in some specific way with your life. Number 1, put away unconfessed sin. Just pray. Just tell God. Confess it to Him. He'll forgive you. And then put away any doubtful habit, whatever that may be in your life. Obey the Spirit promptly. And then you must confess Christ publicly. Confess Christ publicly. May God bless you.